Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming out and making an informed vote. It's the most important part of our democratic process, is knowing who and what you're voting for. And the Green Party is committed to ensuring that every Canadian, regardless of age or geography, can live with dignity. And that means providing opportunities for youth so that they can have education and employment without falling under crushing debt, all the way to ensuring that our public pensions will be there when our aging population needs them. Last week, Elizabeth May released the Green Party of Canada platform. It includes a fully costed budget to get Canada on the right track with a smart economy, strong communities, and true democracy. We include policies such as making it easier to telecommute or work from home so that people can better balance their home and work life, providing support for those who stay home to raise their children, as well as assistance for people who have to go back to work when their children are still young. We need to invest in our First Nations education, safe drinking water, and improved housing to rectify the appalling conditions that currently exist on our reserves. And finally, the Green Party would eliminate tax on the first $20,000 of income that anyone earns, so we double that personal deduction amount, and we'd introduce full income splitting immediately to reduce the tax burden on all families. But before we can accomplish any of that, we need to fix our democratic deficit. Oddly, there's this new dirty word I hadn't heard of before, coalition. And and one side is threatening the other side will do that, and the other side is promising that they won't. And cooperation is very much part of what it means to be Canadian. Canada was built on cooperation. Pearson and Lewis brought in our health care and our Canada Pension Plan, cooperating in a minority government situation. And Greens have served in majority coalition governments around the world successfully. And so we are eager to show Canadians how to cooperate as well. So it is time, vote Green, elect Greens to the House.
Thank you, and thanks to the Chamber for hosting this tonight. My question is on taxation. The current proposed budget reduces corporate taxes with the goal of stimulation of economic growth and jobs. Do you agree with this strategy?
To your question in a word, no, we would not continue the corporate tax schedule. In fact, we'd roll them to the shockingly high level they were at in 2009 of 19%. And that's because the corporate tax cuts have gone far enough, and in fact, they've gone too far. The economists agree that these tax cuts don't further stimulate the economy to create jobs. What happens is the extra money goes to the United States because U.S. corporations that pay a lower corporate tax here end up having to top up that tax in the U.S. And we saw what happened in Ireland when they cut their corporate tax rate to the lowest in the world. They're now an economic basket case. If you want to save jobs, you need to cut the taxes on jobs. So we would lower the payroll taxes, the amount that employers have to pay for EI and CPP, and that is the best tax.
Thank you. Yes, on aging demographics, what is your solution to the increasing pressure on public and private pension funds and their ability to meet future obligations?
Sure, well, I'll continue that trend of consensus. The Green Party believes we should increase the CPP to a 50% target income replacement. Currently, it's aimed to replace 25% of your working income. We would phase that in because to double it right away would be quite a shock, but we'd like to, over a period of years, get to people replacing half their income with CPP, which would be a pretty good place to be at retirement. We also want to make sure that the private pension plans are better audited and better regulated so they don't fail, leaving people without their pensions. And something I've noticed is people have very different ideas about when they want to retire, and so we would like to review workplace mandatory retirement. And people who want to retire early, that's great, but people who want to keep working longer and saving more for later retirement, they should have that right as well, as long as they feel able to contribute to the community.
Thank you. The question is, as the baby boomers retire, there will be a shortage in the workforce's ability to replace those positions. How do we address this issue?
And I was wondering if the question, people are going to get back to the right topic, which is not in this case about a shortage of jobs, but a shortage of skilled labor to do the jobs we still have in Canada. And the Green Party sees that as a serious problem. And the biggest one for youth is that catch-22, where you can't get hired because you don't have the skills and experience. You can't get the skills and experience because you can't get hired. So we'd like to break that cycle with a national employment and education program where young people aged 18 to 25. We'd hire 40,000 per year, and they would each be guaranteed a job for a year working in something that the community needs. At the end of that year, at which they'd be paid, they'd also receive a $4,000 tuition credit to improve their education. And this is just one way we would widen the co-op and the mentoring programs that ease people from education into work where they can learn about it from the people who already know the skills.
Tourism represents a huge business opportunity and is one of the key industries with growth potential in our area. What are your plans to support the existing industry and to attract more tourism dollars to this area?
Look it up, greenparty.ca. Our tax shift involves lowering taxes on labor, which is one of the largest costs for business. But back to the question of tourism, Canada is suffering from something called Dutch disease, where you have a very high-value export. In this case, we're exporting a lot of energy from out west, and that's raising the value of our dollar. We have a federal government that's been promoting reckless expansion of the tar sands, for example, at a rate that's put our dollar above the U.S. dollar for the first time in my lifetime, and that hurts not only our manufacturing, but it hurts our tourism. We believe in a more balanced economic policy that doesn't favor one industry over the rest of the country or one region. We'd like to bring the dollar down with a more balanced economy, and that makes it cheaper for Americans to come and tour the wonderful things we have around here.
On March 25th, all of the Liberal, New Democrat, and Bloc Québécois MPs in the House of Commons supported a motion of no confidence against the Conservative government. It was also a motion that declared the government to be in contempt of Parliament for its refusal to share information that opposition members said they needed to properly assess legislation put before them. How significant is it that a Canadian government was found to be in contempt of Parliament?
Jacoby-Hawkins.
Sure. Well, I hear the phrase early unnecessary election, and I flash back to 2008 when our Prime Minister called an election without any vote of non-confidence. And I agree, an early unnecessary election is a horrible thing, and I wish Prime Ministers would stop triggering those and follow their own schedule. We have an ethics commissioner, and that ethics commissioner reports privately to the Prime Minister. We need to change that to an independent ethics commission that reports directly to Parliament. And the other problem we have are single-party governments that are elected by a minority of Canadians. We need to learn in the Parliament how to have parties working together and keeping an eye on each other within the government, instead of the only time parties cooperate is when they vote to bring a government down.
Well, it's along the same lines. I'd like each candidate to tell me what this should tell Canadians about their democracy, the fact that a government was held in contempt. It's a little different question, but I would like some answers on that.
Say the question again, sorry.
What does this tell Canadians about their democracy when their own government is held in contempt, even though it was by the opposition, but it was still by a majority of MPs in the House of Commons?
Can I just say...
I hear this word majority government thrown around, and majority to me means the more than half of the people. And unfortunately, more than half of the people are not voting for the party that's currently in government, and they're not about to. That is not a majority. Now, if 40% of the people can vote for a party and then they can come in and say we're a majority government, they need to go back to their dictionaries. We need a system where you are not a majority government unless you have the majority of the votes. And until we have that, we will be stuck with either minority governments of parties who can't get along, or majority governments, so-called, who don't have a majority of support.
Well, we have a crisis in Canada where only 14% of Canadians are without a family doctor, and I know even locally there are 30,000 people in Barrie that do not have family doctors. What are your ideas to improve this number and make sure that people can see physicians whenever they need to?
Well, two main things that are in our Vision Green and have been for years are that, and they've been mentioned by other people here, so I'm glad they've been reading our policy document and adopting our ideas. We need to train more doctors, and not just 100 more doctors, as one platform has, but right across the country. And we also need to look at barriers to entry for medical professionals living here now who would like to be practicing doctors and can't. But there's a thing, when we recruit a doctor to Barrie, for a moment I'm happy, that's great, and then my broader perspective comes on, I realize some other community didn't get a doctor. So obviously, the shell game of recruiting more and then other cities recruit them better. We need more doctors to be created in the system rather than just trying to steal them away where they might otherwise have gone to help equally needy people in other communities.
How do the candidates hope to improve accessibility and housing availability across Canada for all Canadians with disabilities?
Well, the Green Party proposed a national affordable housing strategy, and part of that would be to make sure we have housing available for all of the different needs. One of the problems we have is our affordable housing as it exists is often targeted at very specific demographics. We need a variety of housing for the diversity of different family types we have, the ones who are able to provide for some of their housing needs, the others who need all of their housing provided, and the people who have different accessibility needs, and that can only be accomplished with a very well coordinated and designed national program, which is what we need now.
The next question concerns healthcare, and it's to Eric, Jeff, Patrick, Christine, Colin, Darren, and Myrna. And the question is, what plans do you have to help improve wait times for diagnostic procedures? Eric?
I don't have a very specific answer to that very specific question, but in general, I see that we have a lot of money being spent on healthcare in this community. We're very lucky to have a fantastic hospital that's being basically doubled in size, and we're very lucky to be recruiting doctors to come and look after us here. And I think the best way to bring down wait times is to have fewer people needing the procedures, so I think we need to direct more resources into health promotion and into prevention of illness to reduce the lineups for all the services to people that need them.
How will cutting the tax rate for corporations with annual profits of $500,000 or more help small businesses? And what guarantee do we have that large corporations will invest any of their tax savings back into the economy?
I'm pretty sure studies have shown that the most recent level of corporate tax cuts have not led to a great reinvestment of the savings in our economy. And there's a myth that companies travel around the world and they're obsessed with the lowest corporate tax rate. But companies are also looking for the best workforce, which means we need an educated and trained workforce. They're looking for good benefits for their workers, that they have healthy workers so they don't have to pick up the cost of health care. They're also looking for payroll taxes that aren't too high so that the salaries they're paying to their workers actually goes to their workers. And those are areas we need to focus on instead of, laser focus on nothing but the corporate tax rate.
Every party says that they support our troops, but what are your party's plans to support the veterans and to restore the funding or stop the clawbacks?
Well, I have to agree that more peace and fewer wars would be a fantastic start. But more specifically, back in 2006, the new Veterans Charter was passed unanimously by the Conservative, Liberal, NDP voting members in the House. And that's the one that switched from the lifelong pension benefits to the one lump sum. We would reverse that because that does not work for veterans. And we would end the clawback that they currently have from the Service Income Security Insurance Plan so that they can receive those benefits.
Thank you. We do support the troops are going to be coming home, but we would also say in its place, and I don't think we have any disagreement, any party, I think, but committing to ongoing civilian development and a program focused on women, youth, and children. Having said that, when the vets were first coming back from Afghanistan, they discovered that their funerals weren't going to be paid for by our government, and it was raised in the House by the NDP member, and it just changed in 24 hours, and the money was in fact provided. So.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you very much. That's the end of the audience questions section. Thank you, George, for posing them. We'll now hear the closing remarks from each of our candidates. You'll have up to 2 minutes to complete that task. And as with the opening remarks, we have an order that was decided prior to this evening kicking off. We'll start with Mr. Sakula, then Ms. Nugent, Ms. Clark, Mr. Roskin, Mr. Jacoby-Hawkins, Mr. Brown, and apparently the last word goes to Mr. Wilson. So if we could start with Mr. Sakula, please.
Thank you. Yes, well, what I'd like to say is, in closing, is the Canadian Action Party is bringing forth 5 new pillars which we think will help reform our government and make it a better place in Canada for all us to live. The first one is our sovereignty. We want to say no to the globalization that's gone too far and bring a lot of those jobs back and stop selling our natural resources off to foreign corporations who can just take it away at will and we can't even do anything or they can sue us. Our second one is our excessive debt is just out of hand, $560 billion plus, $40 to $60 billion in interest payments a year. No wonder we have no money to pay for social programs like health care and so on. And our third one is parliamentary reform, where we have more representation by vote, and also to give the citizens a veto to stop any actions by government that we don't feel fair, such as when they put NAFTA in. I know a lot of people didn't want that, and they did anyway. So anyways, that's the 3 of them. The other ones were civil rights. I think it's wrong for government to declare martial law every time they don't want us to say anything or do anything. To see peaceful protesters hauled away at the G20 unnecessarily just turned me right off. I said, this is not Canada. And our other one is energy freedom. We support all clean energies. We need to push those and try to save our fossil fuels for future generations, at least slow down on that. It'll save on the environment, cutting down on pollution and so on. So those are our 5 pillars that we are running on, and we hope that will improve Canada for everybody.
Thank you. Ms. Nugent.
I like everything you said. But I would like to speak to the question of, and I think it's a very serious question, that the Marxist-Leninist Party have raised this question of the Canadian people demanding an anti-war government. And the reason this is an issue is because of sovereignty. And I don't agree that it's our place to go into countries and dictate to them what their democracy should be. They have their own thought material, their own history, and they can sort out their own issues. We have our own problems here with democracy. The criminalization of dissent is just one aspect of it. The further concentration of wealth in the hands of the few is the other aspect of it, and that's why we're campaigning on stop paying the rich, because you've given them far too much, and to increase the funding for social programs. The social programs like healthcare, like education, like a national elder care program, like a child care program, there's so many things that are people's issues out there that they're speaking out about, that they're organizing. And the workers in Canada have faced the worst time in this economic crisis. They've lost their jobs, and we need to build manufacturing in order to develop them. The only way that can take place is if we are empowered to do so. And the problem is a question of empowerment. And the empowerment of the Canadian people is a question of democratic renewal. And I think that's what we should all be discussing after this election.
Yes, Ms. Clark, please.
Thank you. We have a lot of agreement around this table. While Canadians struggle to recover, there are an elite few that are proven to be recession-proof. Canada's 100 best-paid CEOs breezed through the peak of the recession in 2009 with an average of $6.6 million in compensation. That's 155 times more than what the Canadian is earning, an average of $42,000 a year. In fact, the wealthiest of Canadians haven't enjoyed this much income since the 1920s. The New Democrat Party wants to get Canadians working in good jobs again. We want to reduce record-high income inequality, strengthen Canada's middle class, and improve supports for Canada's poor and most vulnerable. We want to protect public programs that all Canadians rely on, including public health care and public pensions. We want to implement fiscally responsible, sustainable deficit reduction programs without vital program cuts. We want to get serious about reducing greenhouse gases. Somebody gave Canada the Fossil Award I think John Baird was the Minister of the Environment at the time, in the attendance at Copenhagen recently. And we want to launch a multi-pronged initiative to expand high value-added production in key sectors. The two previous elections, we've had a minority Conservative Party. In those 5 years, the Conservatives have had a chance, but have not taken the opportunity to work with the rest of the parties, which make up 65% of the rest of us. All the other parties agree that the Harper government has not tried to work together for the Canadian people, and we need to change that. Canada needs more New Democrats in the House of Commons. Barrie needs a New Democrat representing us here. People love Jack Layton, but there's this myth that the NDP will never be in government. But there's a study that came out that said if people thought that Jack Layton would be the Prime Minister, 44% of Quebecers would vote for Jack Layton, and that would be addressing the separatist question. Thank you for your attention.
Mr. Roskam.
Yes, well, again, please check out my website, darrenroskam.com. It'll be in better shape in a few days. Well, we don't have a big team. But anyway, libertarianism is it's a hard sell. And everybody wants lower taxes, more money in their pocket, and I would guess the government out of your life as much as possible. But then when you suggest things like selling off the CBC and introducing some private enterprise into our medical system, which is a business, people are too much interested in that. And some folks are still afraid of the idea of defending your own home and property with a firearm. So, well, that's okay. Well, not everybody feels that way. But I wish I had more to say. I wanted to talk about sound money and some other things, but there's no time. There's nothing against you, Bob. You're a great guy and a great reporter, but a little disappointed the Examiner isn't going to provide full profiles for all the candidates. They offered me a smaller one than some of the others, so I'm not participating because I think it's discriminatory, wrong. And lastly, just a little bit about myself. I was born and raised in Barrie. My father put in 33 years at Canadian General Electric and Black & Decker, and I'm a graphic designer. And maybe that's not too impressive to all of you, but I don't misrepresent myself. Erich has been calling himself a teacher to the people of this riding for many years, an English teacher. Boo all you want. The mic's only picking this up. He has no English degree. He has no teaching degree. The only teacher here is her and Mike Ramsey, history teacher, teaching degree, history degree.
Mr. Roskam, I think we'll move along. Thank you very much.
Well, we can't. You got a problem? Come see me.
No, thank you very much. We will now move to Mr. Jacoby-Hawkins.
I'm not a teacher. I used to be years ago. It was a wonderful career, but nowadays I'm an education consultant. I write and edit English textbooks for ESL. But we need members of Parliament who put the interests of Canadians ahead of the interests of their own party and that do more than just stand up and cheer when they're told, or stand up and jeer when they're told to, or most of all, sit down and shut up when they're told to. And if you're upset by the current state of politics, help us in the Green Party send a message to the old line parties that you want a new kind of democracy and a positive vision, an end to the toxic politics, and that we have to find ways to work together. As I've proven, our previous NDP candidate before Myrna, Peter Burst, and I have worked together on a board for 10 years now successfully. Our previous Liberal candidate before Colin Wilson, Rick Jones, and I served together for 3 years on the Mayor's Task Force on Affordable Housing, and our current Conservative candidate and MP Patrick Brown have been working together on initiatives to try and save Barrie Central. So the Green Party is willing to work across party lines to do what needs to be done in the community and ensure a positive view of the future and keep democracy alive. So if you want us to work on these things that we agree here on today, it seemed like we agreed on fairer taxes, caring for the aging, addressing climate issues some of us mentioned, creating jobs and improving, protecting our healthcare system. Elect people who, not the ones who bicker in the House, but elect a party who around the world has served in governments with other parties, again, from across the political spectrum to accomplish what needs to be done for all of the population instead of what only their party or their ideology wants. Thank you.